What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's CJ, and in today's video, we're back at it looking at some NBA player props over on PrizePicks. So we'll be talking points, assists, rebounds, and three-point makes to hopefully help you out when locking in some of those entries tonight. Now, yesterday's video ended up going 6 out of 8, so 6 picks hit out of the 8 that we discussed in yesterday's video. 2 of those picks happen to be because Joel Embiid left the game early yesterday with that injury. So if you took the under on either one of those Joel Embiid props, well, it was like having a free square in your entries yesterday. So congratulations to you. Hopefully some of you guys tailed those picks that we talked about in yesterday's video, found the winning combinations, and ended up making some money. Now, this is obviously the first of the month, June 1st. So new month, new opportunity for you to join Patreon if you're interested in getting even more content than what I talk about in these YouTube videos. I've only got 25 or 30 minutes here to cover a handful of picks, but I do put together daily spreadsheets that help you with even more picks. So if you like the format of these videos and the type of research and stuff that you see me doing, well, I do even more of that for you guys who don't have time to do the research and all the studying on your own. So definitely consider joining Patreon. I'll leave a link down in the description below so you can check it out and consider joining. Also, if you haven't played on PrizePicks before, now's a fantastic time to do so. They're doing a 100% deposit match on your first deposit up to $100. So for example, let's say you want to put in $25 into PrizePicks and it's your first time. Well, they will match that $25 and give you another $25 to play with. So you'll have $50 to carry you throughout the NBA playoffs. If you want to take full advantage of the promo, drop $100 in and they'll match that, giving you $200 to get yourself started over on PrizePicks. It's a fantastic way to play. You're just choosing the overs and the unders on your favorite athletes and their single stat player props or their fantasy points. Parlay them together and choose if you want to power or flex, and then you're on your way to kicking back and watching your favorite sport. It's the ultimate sports companion, in my opinion. I'm having a great time with it, and I think you will too. So I'll leave a link down in the description below if you're interested in joining PrizePicks. Use promo code Curry to take advantage of that offer. All right, with that out of the way, I mentioned we have 3 games to talk about, so let's start getting into the game totals and the spreads, and then we'll get into the individual player props and start breaking those down. The first game we have is the Boston Celtics at the Brooklyn Nets. This game tips off at 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time over on PrizePicks. We've got a 233.5 implied total here with Brooklyn as 12.5 favorites at home. So this is a huge spread here, guys. The totals are great, but the spread is huge, meaning that there is definite blowout potential here. This is a risky game to target a lot of those lofty overs, whether they be fantasy points or single stat props. So just be very careful when taking the overs from anyone in this game. Now, if you do take the overs, you're hoping that the guys that you take the overs on are the major contributors to why the game blows out. So let's say Kyrie Irving over points. I'm just throwing one out there. You would hope that the reason the game blows out is because Kyrie Irving has a big game, right? So it's kind of a double-edged sword here when you're talking about these big spreads. Anyway, let's move on to the next game, probably my favorite game on the slate, Portland Trail Blazers at the Denver Nuggets. This one has a 225.5 implied total with Denver as 2.5-point home favorites. So the totals are pretty healthy here, and the spread isn't one that's ridiculously large like the previous game we talked about. So this game should have plenty of fantasy goodness here, and it's going to stay close and competitive from the looks of things. Hopefully it doesn't blow out. There's been a lot of blowouts in these playoffs so far, but the Vegas lines makers seem to think this one will stay close. So next game and last game is the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, big news out of this one is that Anthony Davis will not play tonight for the Los Angeles Lakers, so give a bump up to Andre Drummond. You could probably expect him to see more playing time and have an increase in his production across the board, whether it be points, rebounds, you name it. Fantasy points. I expect a bigger game for Andre Drummond as he assumes a larger role without Anthony Davis around. Anyway, we got 208 implied points here with Phoenix as a 5-point favorite at home. So not a very high scoring game. In fact, it's the lowest by far of the 3 games on tonight's slate. But it does have the second most favorable spread for us who are betting on sports, playing fantasy sports and stuff like that. So not a super high total, but a good spread for the most part. So with all that out of the way, enough jibber jab. Let's get into some of these player props. The first guy I want to talk about is Jayson Tatum, who, at 33.5 points, that seems kind of high to me. He's had some struggles in a variety of different scenarios covering this 33.5 point prop. So we're going to dig into the projections and some of the averages for Jayson Tatum here and see if he's got a shot tonight of covering this 33.5 point prop, or maybe we should take the under and he doesn't cover. So we don't even have to do a search here on NumberFire. You can see that at 32.3 projected points, that is indicating we should be thinking about the under on Jayson Tatum tonight. So let's move into NBA.com. We'll start doing a little bit of research together. All the sites you see in these videos, completely free for you to use. Just go out there, spend a little time, get familiar with them. There's a lot of great features and functions on NBA.com. NumberFire is a great way to get some projections for fantasy points or single stat player props, you name it. They got a little bit of everything out there for you. So Jayson Tatum's at 26.4 points per game for the season. Obviously, that is quite a bit lower than the 33.5 he's projected at tonight. Now we have to consider that Jaylen Brown, his wingman, is no longer in the mix. So the scoring averages for Jayson Tatum have been on the rise. We know that. So let's look at his production so far in this playoff series against the Brooklyn Nets. You can see that they've played 4 games. He's averaging about 36 minutes per game, and his points per game average is good. It's at 30.3 points per game, but guys, that's significantly less than the 33.5 that he is projected for today, which is, again, another thing that favors us looking to take the under here for Jayson Tatum. So let's go ahead and change this to regular season. Let's click traditional splits, and we'll go into the advanced filters. We'll change his opponent from all opponents to just the Brooklyn Nets. Click run it, and we'll get an idea of how he's performed against the Nets throughout the regular season. So he's faced them 3 different times, played 37 minutes per game, and ended up with 29.7 points per game. So again, those games were probably with Jaylen Brown in the mix and Kemba Walker in the mix, but in this case, 29.7 points is still a good look in terms of us taking the under here. I think the under is definitely still in play. Now, last but not least, we're headed over to RotoWire. We're going to type in Tatum's name. RotoWire gives us a couple of different sports books to look at, so we can kind of get an idea. Is the action on the over? Is the action on the under on some of these single stat player props? So the first one we're looking at here, the action is definitely on the under, a minus 120 at 33.5 points. This next book here, 33.5, it's even, minus 110 under, minus 110 over. And the same situation here, minus 115 under, minus 115 over, completely even Steven on this player prop. But the one book that we do have is favoring the under, a minus 120. So guys, I'm looking at averages, I'm looking at player props, projections, and I'm just not seeing anything that indicates that Jayson Tatum goes over 33.5 points. So if I'm leaning one way or the other, it's going to be on the under on this individual player prop here. So with that one out of the way, let's talk about Aaron Gordon, former Orlando Magic forward. I have to say, I don't really miss this guy in Orlando, but maybe I'm just a little salty at the way he left our team. Anyway, we're here to talk his points prop. He's at 11.5 points facing Portland tonight. That game tips off at 9:10 p.m. over on PrizePicks. Of course, that's Eastern time. So let's look at AG here and see how well he has been scoring in his recent games, because his scoring average has started to climb a little bit, where Michael Porter Jr.'s scoring average has started to decline. So things have kind of taken a little bit of a shift here over in the Denver area. Now we've got him at 11.6 points, which just, barely puts him over at 11.5. It also indicates that we should be leaning toward an over on this 11.5 points, more so than the under. So this is an indication that maybe 12 or more points is in store for Aaron Gordon tonight. Let's go ahead and type his name in here, and we'll do a little bit of research. His season average for scoring is just 12.4 points per game. Now that is higher than the 11.5, but as I mentioned before, he spent a lot of the games this season with the Orlando Magic before the trade. So we can't take this for face value here. We got to go ahead and do a little bit more research, dig a little bit deeper, and get a better idea at how he's been scoring here in this playoff series. So in 4 games, he's averaging 27.2 minutes per game. He has been scoring 12 points per game. Now, there's not a ton of value on this prop at 11.5 points. As you can see, 12 and 11.5, just a 0.5 point difference. But it looks like more often than not, he should be going for 12 or more points based on these averages. So let's go ahead and change the averages from the playoff sample to previous matchups against this Portland Trailblazers team throughout the regular season and see how well he's done in those previous matchups. So we'll change the teams from all teams to just Portland. Click run it. And then this report kicks back 2 games played. He only played 20.7 minutes and averaged just 7 points per game against Portland. So probably going to take this sample size and crumble it up and throw it away because I don't think this one's very reliable, especially when you look at the minutes. And you also have to consider, was he with Orlando in this sample size? Was he with Denver already? We don't really know. So we're going to kind of not take that too serious. So let's move back over to RotoWire. We'll type in Aaron Gordon's name. And we got him at 11.5 points across the industry today. Now, the first book, he's a minus 113 under and over, so he's even there. The next book has him as a minus 114 over, so a slight fave to go over 11.5 points. And then finally, the last book we've got here, he is a minus 125. Better odds there of going over this 11.5 point prop. So we got a couple of different books that say going over on 11.5 points is probably the way to go. We've got projections that also indicate that he's slightly favored to go over 11.5, being closer to 12 points. And in this 4-game sample size that we have in this series so far, he's been at 12 points per game. So I'm leaning toward the over on Aaron Gordon tonight and hoping that he can continue his upward trend in terms of scoring. Let's go ahead and look at a couple of assists. And for the assist props that I'm interested in, we're going back to the Boston Celtics and Brooklyn Nets game. The first guy I want to talk about is Evan Fournier, who's at 2.5 assists today. 2.5 assists looked like it was going to be a little bit too low based on my initial research, but let's go ahead and do the research together here. So I'll type in Fournier's name. You can see that he is projected at 3.7 assists today, which is 1.2 assists higher than his prop over on PrizePicks at 2.5. So let's go back over to NBA.com. We'll type in Fournier's name, and we'll get an idea of if we should be going over or under on his assist prop. Now you can see he's at 3.4 assists per game. Now 3.4 assists, obviously more than 2.5 assists, but much like his former teammate Aaron Gordon, they both spent a lot of time in Orlando this season, so we can't completely fall in love with what we're seeing in terms of their season averages. So we got to go into the stats category here. We're going to click the regular season, change it to playoffs, and see how well he's been dishing out dimes in this series so far. So with 4 games under his belt, averaging 32.7 minutes per game, his assists per game are just 1.5 assists. Now, obviously 1.5 assists puts him under 2.5 assists, but this could be one of those situations where we look to target a bounce back. So when a guy is performing under where he's been performing for like his season averages, I like to look at those as potential overplays where a guy could potentially get back to where he's at for his season averages, closer to those season averages. So let's move things along here. We've got Evan Fournier's name pulled up already on RotoWire. You can see that he's at 2.5 assists across the industry today. Looking like pretty strong odds on the over on this prop, minus 132 over. We've got him as a big minus 142 over. And last but not least, a minus 139 over. So 3 different sports books indicating that the over on this 2.5 assist prop is the way to go on Evan Fournier. Although his averages in this season, in this series rather, have been kind of subpar at just 1.5 assists per game, there is a little bit of information out there that would suggest that he could bounce back in this spot here and return back to around 3 assists or more in this matchup. So I think I'm going to ride with the Vegas odds here, the sportsbook odds here, and hope that Evan Fournier does just that. I'm going to take the over here. Now, the other assist prop I want to talk about is Blake Griffin, the power forward for the Brooklyn Nets. He's at 1.5 assists today, and despite having a diminished role on this Brooklyn Nets team, surprisingly, he has been crushing this 1.5 assist prop with pretty great regularity lately. So let's go over to Number Fire. You can see I've already got him pulled up here. He's at 2.3 projected assists, so that puts him over the 1.5 assist mark, indicating that 2 or more assists is definitely a possible outcome for Blake Griffin today. So we're going to go over to Basketball Reference because NBA.com is just wigging out today. Let's open up Blake Griffin and his player card, and you can see that we switched this over to the playoff tab. In this playoff series, he's averaging 2.3 assists per game. So I know a lot of you guys are afraid to take some of these scrubs or some of these role players like a Blake Griffin, but sometimes that's where the value really lies. Everybody's focused on the Kevin Durant's, the James Hardens, the Kyrie Irvings of the world. And little guys like Blake Griffin with these little 1.5 assist props have been quietly low-key crushing. So you could see that for the series, 2.3 assists indicates that the over is definitely in play here. Now, last but not least, we're going to head over to RotoWire. We're going to open up Blake Griffin's prop, and you got two different sports books that have him at 1.5 assists. The first one's got him at a -132, pretty nice prop on the over, and then the next one has him as a -118. So I think when you add everything together here, you've got the Vegas props, you've got the projection on his assists today, you've got his averages in this series so far. Everything indicates that the over is definitely on the table for Blake Griffin. I'm not seeing anything that's going to persuade me to go under or fade this pick. I'm taking the over and riding with it based on how he's performed. Now, the next couple of props I want to talk about are both rebound props. The first one is back in Boston. Talking about Tristan Thompson here at 10.5 rebounds. He hasn't been covering 10.5 rebounds very regularly throughout this series so far. Maybe 10.5 is a little bit too high for him, and we should be looking at the under. But we're going to head back over to Number Fire. We're going to type in Tristan Thompson's name. And you can see they've got him projected at 9.6 rebounds. Now, 9.6 puts you just slightly over that 9.5 rebound hump, indicating that he's closer to 10 rebounds tonight than he will be 9 rebounds. So even if he does get 10 boards and we take the under at 10.5, we're going to make some money on this prop, right? So let's move things back over to Basketball Reference. We'll type in Tristan's name. We'll open up his player card, and you can see that for the regular season, his rebounds are at 8.1, which is another clear indication that the under should be the way we look here on Tristan Thompson. We're going to switch this over to the playoffs tab, and in this playoff series so far, he's averaging 10 rebounds per game. Obviously, 10 rebounds, still under 10.5, so the under is definitely very much alive so far. We're going to click the rebound category over on RotoWire, type in Tristan Thompson's name there, and we've got him at 10.5 boards across one of the sports books here. Now, 9.5, two of the books have him at 9.5. People are taking the over, indicating that 10 or more rebounds is in play. But over here at 10.5 boards, people are smashing the under, a -167 to go under. So you got to think about between 9.5 and 10.5 lies 10 rebounds. So it's really setting up for a 10 rebound type of night, which would put him right in line with his averages for this series so far. But at 10.5, I'm definitely sticking to the under on Tristan Thompson. No need to flip-flop or overthink it. That's going to be the way I'm going. The next prop I want to talk about is Jay Crowder of the Phoenix Suns. Another rebound prop here. He's at 4.5 boards, and this one might be a little more tricky than Tristan Thompson. So let's head back over to Number Fire. We'll type in Jay Crowder's name. Now at 5.3 projected rebounds, that would put him over this 4.5 rebound mark, indicating that we should be looking to take the over here as well. But when I say that this one could be tricky, it's because the preliminary research that I did before hitting record on today's video indicated that he hasn't been covering 4.5 rebounds very often in this series so far. So let's go do a little bit more research together here. We'll type in Jay's name. Opening up his player page here. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you viewers at home, and we'll move things over and look at his rebound average for the season, which is 4.7 boards. So he's between 4 and 5, but more often than not, he lands on 5 rebounds. So this is over the 4.5, just barely, but that is a good sign if you are looking to take the over here. We're going to click the playoff tab here and scroll over a little bit. And you can see that so far in this playoff series, he's at 5 rebounds. So I'm seeing more and more now why that the over is the way to go here based on those projections we saw earlier. It's because his season averages and his series averages so far indicate that he can pull in 4.7 to 5 rebounds on any given night. Now we're going to head back to RotoWire. We're going to type in Jay Crowder, and in the different sports books we have here, we got him at 4.5 across the board. He's a minus 113 over and under here, so he's even. On the next book, he's a minus 115 over, and finally the last book has him as a minus 125 over. So everything is actually pointing to the over on this one. Could this be a little bit of a trap? Potentially, but I think that there's too much evidence here that indicates that the over is the way to go. But out of the two, out of him and Tristan Thompson, I probably like the Tristan Thompson under 10.5 boards a little bit more than I like the over on Jay Crowder. So with those two rebound props out of the way, we're going to go and dig into a couple of 3-point props that I was really liking. So let's go ahead and move along here. The first one I want to talk about is Marcus Smart, who's at 2.5 3-point makes. Now, he has not been covering this 2.5 3-point prop this series. So this is going to be one where I think I'm looking to take the under here. So we're going to type in Marcus Smart. How about Marcus Smart? That'll work. Got to get those names right in order to get any results here on these search engines. Anyway, you can see that during the regular season, in which he appeared in 48 games, he attempted 5.9 3-pointers per game, making just 1.9, which is good for an under. That's a 33% conversion rate on those attempts. So let's flip this over to his playoff tab here. And you can see that so far in these 4 games in this series, he is attempting a much higher volume here, 8.3 3-point attempts, and he's making 3.8 of them, good for 45%. Now, I don't think this is sustainable. This would be one of those situations where a guy has been shooting pretty well here, and I think I'm looking to take the under. I'm looking for a regression type of situation, and that's why I'm looking to take the under on Marcus Smart. That's been working out for me so far. You know, there's a chance that maybe it doesn't, maybe it'll backfire, but these are the types of situations where I look at something like that and I'm like, is it sustainable? Can he keep shooting at 45% from behind the arc? I don't know. I don't think so. But anyway, let's look at his prop across the different sports books. We got him at 2.5 threes. He's a minus 120 to go under on this book. Now this one's a little different. He's a minus 118 to go over. And then last but not least, he is even Steven again here at minus 115 under and a minus 115 over. So guys, I don't know that Marcus Smart is a sniper, a marksman from beyond the arc. I'm not really buying into it. Can he make 3-pointers or more? I mean, I guess so. I guess he could, but I'm not a believer. I'm probably going to take the under on Marcus Smart tonight and hope that he regresses and his 3-point field goal percentage numbers start to dip in tonight's game. So that's how I'm looking on that one. And finally, the last guy I want to talk about, who has been quietly going over his 1.5 3-point makes, is I don't know how to say his name. I don't want to say it wrong. I'm going to say Campazzo. I know how to say Campazzo. So Campazzo at 1.5 3-point makes. I'm looking to take the over. So let's go ahead and head back to Basketball Reference. We'll type in Campazzo Facundo. Oops, got to be careful what you say on YouTube. Anyway, we'll go into his season averages here. You can see that he has attempted 3.3 3-point field goals per game, making 1.2, which would put him under tonight's prop of 1.5. But when I flip over to this playoff tab here, you can see that his 3-point field goal percentage and attempts go up, attempting 5 3-pointers per game, making 2. And that's good for a 40% three-point field goal percentage, which is pretty great. So he doesn't take a high volume. I mean, 5's a pretty good number, but he's not like Damian Lillard or some of these other guys who attempt 8 or 9 three-pointers per game, but he is pretty efficient with the attempts that he does get here. So that's what we're going to need. The ones that he does take, we're going to need him to make. So let's go back to RotoWire. I will type in Campazzo, and you can see that they've got him at 1.5 threes across 2 different books here. Now, surprisingly, he has a -125 to go under on both of those books. I don't know that I agree with this, unless they think that tonight he is going to regress, possibly closer to where he's been at during the season. I guess it's possible. These 3-point props can be tricky, but I'm going to ride with Campazzo here on the over on 1.5 3-point makes. He's just been getting it done and covering this prop with pretty great regularity. But that's going to do it for today's video. Which props are you liking? Which ones are you not? Drop a comment down in the comment section below. Had some technical difficulties, had to switch sites once again. NBA.com acting up, my internet acting up, but we made it. We crossed the finish line and we got another video in the books. So hopefully there's some winning picks in here for you somewhere. Good luck tonight if you're playing over on PrizePicks. If you're not, sign up below. And if you're not subscribed with notifications turned on, make sure you do that right now. And I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.